All right, away we go. Welcome to the Krug Show on a Saturday. It took a while. We had some technical snafus. There's been some difficulty, but we are off and we are running. And we got a fantastic show for you. The Niners draft big board reaction. That's right. Matt Barrows did a whole breakdown in The Athletic. We break down what he broke down and talk a lot of Niners and look ahead to the upcoming draft right freaking now. Let's go. Off and running on a Saturday. Good morning to all. Welcome to Saturday, March the 21st. We're almost in April. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. You will not be disappointed in the great Pig and a Pickle. You will love Pig and a Pickle. Also, thank you to Novato Chevrolet. Novato Chevrolet voted best dealership by the community on Nextdoor app. The 2025 next neighborhood fave was Novato Chevrolet. When I buy a Chevrolet, I only buy it from Novato Chevrolet. 2025 rated top car dealership by Carfax. Family owned for over 50 years. Friendly staff to meet all of your expectations. We'll talk more about them in a bit. Novato Chevrolet, Bay Area EV headquarters, over $3 million in used cars, hundreds in inventory, all makes, all models. They'll buy your car even if you don't buy their car. Novato Chevrolet. And also thank you to our good friends at Habbas Law. And they are giving away, or I should say they are doing their animal adoption, where they're paying the adoption fees at the San Jose Animal Care Center Saturday, March the 28th. So next Saturday, if you want to adopt a dog, a cat, a hamster, or whatever it is, you just go to their address on Monterey Road, and from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Habbas Law will be paying for the pet adoptions. So thanks to them. Also, thanks to Alomar Marina, alomarmarina.net on the web. They're at 5999 Garden Highway. Open Wednesday through Sunday. Go get the shrimp tacos. Dine on the Sacramento River as you float. All right, let's get right to it. 49ers draft season is here. Matt Barrows did a nice little breakdown in The Athletic of what the Niners may do. And he's taken a look at it in a kind of a reasonable fashion. He's looking at it like, okay, the Niners have a pick in the first round. They got a pick in the second round. Pick 27 in round one. I think they picked 58 in round two. And then they have 4 picks in the fourth round. And then that's it. They don't pick again after that. They don't pick in the 5th, 6th, or 7th. At least they're not scheduled to right now. So he went through their needs and said, well, who could they be looking at if they did it in the first round? Who could they be looking at if they filled this need in the second round? Who could they be looking at if they filled this need in the fourth round? So he's got a bunch of different options, and we'll kind of review what he went through. Then I also did an exercise of my own this week where, we're in mock draft season. So I put together 5 different mock drafts. One with what if the Niners just drafted nothing but linemen? O-line, D-line. What would it look like? What would it look like if the Niners drafted nothing but skill position guys? They need that. They need a tight end. They need a receiver. They need a running back. You could argue they need a starter at all 3 spots. They need a dynamic running back, a dynamic receiver, a great tight end. What if they just had a draft where all they did was draft skill position guys? What would it look like? What if they had a draft and they just addressed the defensive side of the ball? Let's just say they went all offense for the most part in free agency. They signed a couple defensive guys. Greenlaw's back. They brought in the corner. we'll see exactly where they go in the draft. But what if they did an all offense draft and every draft pick was on offense or every draft pick was on defense? And then also, I'm a big Texas A&M fan. A&M sent the most players of any school to the combine. They had 13 representatives at the combine. They've got a ton of draft eligible players. So I did a mock of just A&M players. So we'll take a look at my 5 phantom mocks before we get out of here. But of course, thanks to you all for being here. The draft is approaching. It is coming up. We're about 5 weeks away from the NFL draft. And it's crucial for the Niners, as we know, because they need a lot of help. They need a big draft. They need an absolute big draft. And there's a lot of different ways they can play their hand. And they do have a lot of needs. Now, some of their needs have been filled in free agency. So let's talk about that for a second, and then we'll get into Barrow's piece. First of all, do you need a receiver? Well, receiver is probably no longer the top option because you now have Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, Ricky Pearsall, Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, Demarcus Robinson, and 3 other guys. But you got those 6 guys who are all NFL. A lot of NFL teams don't even go with 6 receivers. They go with 5 and a return man. So you could make an argument that the Niners don't have any room for any receivers unless you're going to cut Cowing or Watkins, which you could, or you're going to trade Pearsall, which you could. But you've got right now seemingly good depth at wide receiver. Do you have your star of the future? No. Is your best receiver over 30? Yes. So you do need a star. You need a great young receiver, in my opinion. That's what they need. This is the franchise that had Jerry Rice and Terrell Owens. You need a great receiver. Do you have a great receiver? No. You have some young receivers in Watkins and Cowing that have some speed. Somebody asked me this week, Krug, have you given up on Watkins or Cowing, or are you willing to admit you were wrong because you were hyping them? Why in the hell would I admit that I was wrong? What am I to be wrong about? Because they haven't played yet. I mean, they haven't played yet. Cowing hasn't gotten out there. Watkins barely got out there. No, I'm not backing off my stance that I like both those guys. Yes, both of those guys absolutely can play. And the fact that the Niners haven't gotten them out there is on the Niners. It's not on me. Could be on these players, but it ain't on me. So Cowing, I think, was a very good player in college, and I think he's going to, if he can endure the physicality of the sport, see Ricky Pearsall, he can't, then maybe he'll play. Jordan Watkins, I think it was just a series of untimely injuries, and the timing just wasn't right. I mean, this guy did it in camp this summer, catching great ball after great ball down the field. He had maybe the highlight of training camp, the deep ball that he caught down the field in the middle of the field against Denver from Brock Purdy, just a flat, perfect dime on a deep ball. I thought we were going to see it a bunch this year. We didn't see it at all. We did not see it at all. So they have 6 receivers right now, but they don't have a great receiver. Junior Bergen, Colton Dowell, Malik Turner, those guys are just guys. Cowing and Watkins, I do believe in still. I like Demarcus Robinson, but he's just a guy. Christian Kirk he's got some speed and some big playability. But, he's a veteran at this point. If he was going to be a superstar, it would have happened already. Pearsall's glass, can't stay healthy, can't get on the field. Evans is Evans, going to the Hall of Fame. So you in a way, you're covered, but in a way you're not, because you got 6 receivers, but what do you got? You got Evans, and then you got question marks. Pearsall, who knows? Kirk, Watkins, Cowing, Demarcus Robinson, they're all question marks. So you need a true great receiver. Whoever your next great receiver is going to be, he's not on the team right now. You got to go get that guy. You can't do it in round 1 because you can't draft another receiver in round 1. I don't think, though. We'll see. Matt suggests maybe they can. So that's wide receiver. And then, so the need is not as severe as it was at the end of the year. At quarterback, there's no need at all. You have Purdy and Mac Jones, and you have Curtis Rourke, and you have Adrian Martinez, and you probably are going to go into the year with that. I mean, they could draft somebody, but they don't need to. They're set at quarterback. So they're pretty loaded at quarterback. They're pretty loaded at wide receiver, even though I think a lot of people are factoring that they need a receiver. But if they get a receiver that they like, they're going to wind up cutting another receiver that they once upon a time liked. So we'll see. Then the offensive line. Now, the offensive line, the Niners really believe that their offensive line is better than it is. I mean, it's just not as good as it. We don't know about Trent Williams. Supposedly he's going to have his deal redone. They kicked the can down to the draft. We'll see how this goes down. They going to pay him? They going to trade him? Not going to cut him, but they could trade him. I mean, they've got the deadline there. They also could play some kind of old-fashioned country hardball where they draft a tackle early and just say, "Oh, you want to come back? Now we got a replacement for you." I hope they don't do that, because that would be really acrimonious and probably make the organization look bad. But they could go tackle in the first round and play hardball with Trent Williams. They could. They could trade Trent Williams on draft day for some draft compensation. I do find it interesting that they made the new deadline the draft. So now essentially they've got 5 more weeks to work out this arrangement, but they also have 5 more weeks to work out a trade on draft day to move Trent Williams to another team for a draft choice and replace him the same day they trade him. The one thing they're not going to do is they're not going to banish him and then be like, well, in the future we'll find somebody. No, they're not. If they banish him, they're going to invest in a trade for a veteran tackle, or they're going to invest in a high pick for a rookie tackle. So it's all going to happen in one day. It's like one day it's going to be Trent's the left tackle, and then he's either going to be extended the next day, or he's going to be traded, and they've got a rookie left tackle, and they've got a new veteran left tackle, or they've signed a different left tackle. So I think it's all coming to a head on draft day, but I'm not going to sit there like a lot of others and just say, it's a done deal. I don't believe it is. I think there's negotiation there, and I think the Niners are probably playing super hardball with him. He's got all the leverage, which makes super hardball hard to play. It's hard to play super hardball when the other guy holds all the cards, and that's kind of where the Niners are at. Doesn't mean they won't still try to play it. And we've seen them do it before. They drafted Ayuk, or they drafted Pearsall, trying to send a message to Ayuk. They could easily draft Caden Proctor to try to send a message to Trent Williams. So it could happen. And now with the new deadline being the draft, they're either going to work out an extension in the next 5 weeks and announce it probably right around the draft, or it's all going to come to a head and they're going to flip them for some player or pick or combination thereof and go in a different direction at left tackle. So I'd say it's probably 75% chance that Trent comes back, the Niners cave again and pay him whatever he wants again and just keep going down this road. But 25% chance, I would say they say, you know what, we're fucking tired of this. We're done with this. Let's trade him for a 5th round pick and a mediocre veteran tackle, and let's get down the road. Wouldn't be surprised by that. Would not be surprised by that. It does feel a little different this time, and I don't think the Niners want the mountain of dead cap that invariably is coming your way. If you pay Trent Williams the going rate, which he has every right to ask for, he has every right to demand, and you just had $103 million of dead cap. So you might be able to work out some kind of everybody bends, but something tells me that's not going to happen. Something tells me that Trent's not going to bend at all, and that the Niners are going to play somewhat hardball all the way, even though they have no leverage, all the way into this deadline. And then they're going to flip them for a 3rd round pick and a tackle that's, starting somewhere else. I still think there's a better chance than most people think that Trent winds up in Kansas City, Trent winds up in Houston, Trent winds up somewhere else. I just don't believe the Niners want to do this big money, long-term deal with tons of dead cap. And they just did this. And I don't think they're interested in doing it again. And they've had Trent Williams. They know what it's like to have Trent Williams. And I know if it was up to Shanahan exclusively, he'd just do whatever to get Trent Williams. But it's not up to him exclusively. There's probably a little bit more say-so now goes to Parag and the bean counters on the cap side, the capologists. They're probably heeding those guys' words a little bit more because of some of the bad deals and some of the bad contracts. And so my guess is they're going to draw a hard line on Trent Williams, and he's either going to play ball with them and compromise and take less, or he's not. And I don't think he is. And I think that ultimately may lead them to kind of a forced reassessment of their draft plan, because I think they're going to have to then devote more draft capital to improving the offensive line, because they're going to need to, because they're going to have to move on from Trent. That's my feeling for it. Others feel like, oh no, this is, Niners are I watched Lombardi's thing yesterday. Oh, the Niners are very confident that they're going to get the Trent Williams deal done. I would say don't fall for that. They may be really confident, but if they were think about it this way. If they really were that confident of getting a deal done, a deal would be done. If they really were that confident that a deal could get done, why do they need 5 more weeks? Because they're grinding him. And it's a negotiation. And it's a tough negotiation. So this whole you know what? This is all just positives and there is no risk here and there's nothing going on. If it was as simple as, we want to go forward and do an extension, then there's no doubt you could do it right now. Why aren't you doing it right now? Why did you kick this can down the road? Because you're giving yourself more time to negotiate for everything. You have more time to negotiate an extension, and then you have more time for him to potentially take less, and then you have more time for somebody to potentially offer you a trade. And as we get closer to draft day, one of the trends that happens in these war rooms is teams start looking at the failure rate of the draft and start sitting there going, well, yeah, we could take this tackle, but he's probably not going to be that good. He could be good, but we're not 100% sure. And they start hedging. And all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, you know what? 80% of the draft picks are going to be out of the league within the next 3 years. And then before not, you've convinced yourself that everybody's flawed and that all these draft picks are major risks and that you can't really go down the road of drafting any of them. And you can't put your quarterback behind a line that has a rookie on it. Oh my God, look what happened with Will Campbell this year with the Patriots in the Super Bowl. He just got dog walked. He just got totally dominated. So young offensive linemen do struggle. That's not a myth. It's not like, oh, Krug just made it up. No, young offensive linemen struggle, even if they're blue chippers. Heck, Campbell went in the top 10, and he still got absolutely owned in the Super Bowl because it's a really hard position, and it takes a long time to learn. And arm length, he had short arms. I don't want a short arm tackle. God, if there's one spot, all you have to do is watch end zone cut up film of the coach's copy. Watch any series of end zone, watch any offense operate from the end zone, and you'll understand the value of long arms at offensive tackle. If you don't watch coach's film, you'll never understand why long arms mean so much at offensive tackle. It's literally the geometry of the rush is all tied to the length of the arm. If you got really short arms, guys are taking inside angles on you. If you have long arms, you don't even have to have as quick a feet. because you can keep them at the end of that long arm. You've heard boxing analysts say, yeah, he's got him. He's keeping him at the end of his jab. He's keeping him at the end of his jab. That's basically saying that one of the boxers has longer arms than the other, and he keeps throwing that jab, and he can connect. And while he can connect, because he's got an arm length advantage, the other guy can't connect. So he just keeps him on the end of the jab and just keeps jabbing him. That long arm tackles mean everything. If you got a long arm tackle, the guy's got to go wide. If you got to tackle with 30-inch arms, well, first of all, you won't. They don't exist. They won't put guys with 30-inch arms at tackle, not in the NFL. So that could be, that's another issue. I like Houston Texans may like 5 offensive tackles in this upcoming draft, and maybe 3 of them they feel like they can get, but maybe 2 of the 3 have arm length that is just kind of like, okay. And they're a little worried. And now all of a sudden they start to hedge. And now let's call John Lynch. We can get Trent Williams for whatever, 4th round pick and Arianti Ursary. Maybe we ought to do that. Get Trent Williams in here. He's the best. Long arms, 330 pounds, athletic as hell. He's only going to play it 2 years, maybe 2, maybe 3 max, maybe 1. He's pretty much at the end. Yeah, but you're getting the best. And if you're sitting there going, hey, CJ Stroud good enough, you might say, hey, Trent Williams. So offensive line, is it an issue for the Niners? Yes. They need a long-term tackle behind. Right now, they're fortified. Trent Williams, Colton McKivitz, Austin Pleasants, they like a lot. Verdarian Lowe, they just signed him. So they have 4 tackles. So they don't necessarily need. There's a lot of people who are like, they got to go offensive tackle all, repeatedly. What? This is a 53-man roster. You don't have endless guys, endless spots. So you're going to start McKivitz and you're going to start Trent Williams. So you can draft an offensive tackle in the first round. What if he can't play? What if he can't play guard? Not every offensive tackle can plug in at guard. Some guys are just not built to play guard. Some guys are just too long-legged to play guard, and it's a real risk against some kind of an ACL injury, putting them inside. So the Niners they have 2 needs. They have a long-term tackle need, and it would be great if they could find a long-term tackle. But they don't necessarily have a short-term tackle need, but they do have a short-term need in the interior. Because right now, if there was a game tomorrow, they would start Connor Colby, Jake Brendel, Dom Pooney across the interior. And I think they only really love Pooney. They claim they love Brendel, but I think that's just, he's like 1 more year in his contract. Everything about the way Kyle Shanahan calls the game screams that he does not love Jake Brendel. And I'll take what he does over what he says every day. And then Connor Colby, Nick Zakelj, Drake Nugent, Brett Toth. These guys are all in the mix for left guard, and yet none of them are. I don't think the Niners would be satisfied with any of those guys as the starting left guard. So they need an interior player that can play guard and maybe be versatile and play the other spots, guard, center. And they need that player to be ready to roll. They need a guy, and they need an interior, long-armed, versatile offensive lineman who can be ready to play right away, like week 1. They need an offensive tackle who can be, ready to go in 2027. That's what they're looking at on the offensive line. At quarterback, they have no needs because right now they have Mac Jones, Brock Purdy, Curtis Rourke, Adrian Martinez. So you don't have a lot of needs at quarterback. You're pretty loaded at wide receiver, though you're looking for that number 1 guy. You're looking for a long-term tackle to replace Trent. And you're more urgently, you're looking for an interior player who can play right away. Now let's get to tight end. I think you're looking for a significant tight end. You have George Kittle, but he's on IR and tore his Achilles, and who knows what he'll do, and he's older. You have Tonjes, who's a really good receiver, but is not a blocker. You have Farrell, who's I don't think Farrell's very good. I thought Farrell stunk this year. He didn't give you much as a blocker. He's nothing as a receiver. Little bit of a special teamer. Not bad. Pretty good special teamer. But I mean, the significant signing of the offseason, I mean, that was pathetic. That was like one of their big signings last year, and he was just thoroughly mediocre. Braden Willis can't play dead. Hayden Rucci, just a guy. So you need a tight end. I mean, you could wind up if Tonjes had a hamstring pull, which is like about as common as anything, you could wind up with absolutely nothing at tight end. Kittle's not ready. Tonjes has got a hammy pull, and now you're looking at Braden Willis, Hayden Rucci, and Luke Farrell. That's the worst fucking tight end room in the world. That's the worst tight end room in the league in the last decade. There's no worse tight end room I can think of. Luke Farrell, Braden Willis, Hayden Rucci, that could be your tight end room. So they better get real about a tight end. Now, I kind of think that the two spots that they could maybe fill outside of the draft are tight end and free safety. We'll see. But I expect during the springtime there's going to be more tight ends lopped off due to cap casualty status. TJ Hawkinson may be out there. Maybe that makes sense. Bring in the Iowa tight end. There are definitely good tight ends in this draft. I really like the SMU combo, Hibner and Maryland. Both those guys ran in the 4.5s. Hibner's really strong, has good jumping ability. Maryland's very fast, 6'4", 240, very fast tight end. Great receiver, really dynamic receiving tight end. So tight end, I think, is significant. So once again, receiver looks like a need, and they need a number one guy, but if they didn't draft a receiver at all, not that big a deal. And in fact, there's a couple receivers. They may be able to do receiver after the draft. I love Cole Wilson from Baylor. Go check him out. He's a total burner. Dylan Bell from Georgia. Both these guys are not going to probably get drafted. If they are, they're going to be late day 3 guys, round 7 guys. But there's a very good chance neither gets drafted. I mean, I'd be fine just signing those 2 guys. Cole Wilson, who can absolutely fly, and Dylan Bell, who's kind of like a Debo clone, converted running back, did all the gadget roles for Georgia. He's a really underrated player, tough, ready to play right now. So that's what I would do at receiver. I wouldn't even invest a pick in a receiver if I had to. Because you got so many other needs. You need you need a tackle, but if you don't find one, you don't find one. It's more of a long-term need. You need an interior player, and it's an urgent need. You need a tight end, and it's a very urgent need. And you may need 2 tight ends. You may need to draft a tight end, and you may need to sign a tight end, or they may want to go the veteran route at tight end. Quarterback, you're set if Mac's coming back. I do like Mark Gronowski a lot from Iowa, who's either going to be a late day 3 pick or an undrafted free agent. There's a lot to like. I mean, he's 10 and a quarter inch hands, huge hands. Mechanical engineering major, genius. 6'3" or 6'2", 230, and can run. Blocks, is tough. Won the MVP of the ReliaQuest Bowl against Vanderbilt. Watch that game. He looked great. Not holding Iowa's crappy offense against him. Their offense was crappy with Petrus. Their offense was crappy with other guys. Their offense was crappy with Kittle, for crying out loud. Their offense was crappy with Laporta. I mean, Iowa doesn't score points. This just in. They don't score. They just don't. Doesn't mean that their players aren't good. It just means that their scheme's not great. And I like Mark Gronowski. Really good-looking, athletic player. Now, he's not going to be drafted most likely. If he is, it's going to be late day 3. But Gronowski's got something special, and I would definitely bring him in if I could. So that's quarterback, and then let's get to running back. You got Christian McCaffrey, The word out of Niner camp is they really love Jordan James. They re-signed Patrick Taylor for what reason, I have no idea. I mean, he looked pretty good in camp, but so what? I mean, he's just a total forgettable back. Runs totally upright, gets smoked, and then gets hurt. Guerendo can't be trusted, probably needs to be traded. Another guy, he's not a football player. He's an athlete. He's not a running back. He might be a fullback. He might be a tight end. He might be a special teamer, but not a running back. He has no running back instincts to speak of. Nothing about what he does screams running back. I mean, I asked Shanahan, what is he? What's his position? He's like, he's a running back. And I'm like, all right. Then I'm a running back because I also don't do what running backs do. So maybe I can be a running back. Shanny, you're a running back. Lynch is a running back. The people in the chat are all running backs because they also can't do what running backs can do. Anybody can be a running back in name. There's nothing about Isaac Guerendo at all that's a running back. He has no feel. He can't hold on to the ball. No pick and slide. No vision. I mean, it's like, dude, it's like he won the human gene pool race. You know, he's huge and he's fast. Other than that, you might as well, work at Trader Joe's because he doesn't have any skills for running back. So then they get juice. So they like Jordan James, but so what? I mean, he didn't play last year. You can't trust a running back that got carries in July and then not again until January. And if you're going to have him back, that's one thing, but you can't sit there and be like, oh, yep, he's our guy. And then you got CMC coming off 450 touches. Last time he had this many touches, he played 3 games the next year. So, running back's a major need. Major need. They don't just need a back. They need probably multiple backs. And they don't just need a back. They need a great back. CMC might be at the end. Roughly 30-year-old running back who runs upright, who just had a 450 touch season. If he's got 3 more years left, I'd be shocked. McCaffrey, Jordan James, Guerendo.
Hey, your camera's off, just FYI.
Juszczyk. Camera went off. Sorry about that. You're being too harsh on Guerendo. I'm not being harsh enough. He can't play at all. He cannot play at all. He runs into guys. He fumbles. He's not an NFL running back. He might be a fullback. Maybe he's a fast fullback. What do you ask fullbacks to do? Block, know the plays, occasionally catch a ball. The guy was a wide receiver. I'm telling you, he's a fullback. He's a fullback. He should be a fullback. He's shaped like a fullback. He doesn't have instincts like a running back. He can do all of the things that fullbacks need to do in this offense. He's a fullback. He's a fullback. He's not anything really, but he's vacationing with Cowing and Pearsall. Good for them. But he's not a running back. So they need a running back. So that, so now that's basically where we're at. Do they need a receiver? Yeah, they need a number 1 receiver, but they don't necessarily need to get any receivers to fill out the roster. They need a future left tackle, but they don't need any left tackles to fill out the roster. They need a left guard to fill out the roster. They need a new tight end to fill out the roster. They need another running back to fill out the roster. So I would say those are the 3 needs on offense for sure. Left tackle and receiver, if you can get the right guy, go for it. Get him. Grab him. In any round, wherever they are. I really like tackle-wise. I really like Emil Wagner. I like Keegan Trost from Missouri. I really like J.C. Davis from Illinois. Went to McClymonds High School in the East Bay. Very athletic, 6'5", 335. Transferred in there to Illinois. Started off at DVC. Really like J.C. Davis. So there's some late round tackles that I think are intriguing as developmental tackles. The guy that I absolutely love as an interior player. There's a bunch of them. Some of the mock drafts that I've done have the Penn State guard falling to the Niners. If he falls to the Niners, I'm running that card in. I mean, how do you not take that guy? Venga Owane. How do you not take Big Venga if he falls to you? He's maybe a future Hall of Fame guard. That's what they need. What do the Niners need more? Do they need a left tackle? They need a Hall of Fame guard. Do they need a receiver? They need a Pro Bowl running back. Do they need a tight end? Yes, they need a very good tight end. But that's the point. I mean, it's like they really need they need great players. Christian McCaffrey's great. Kittle's great. Trent's great. Fred's great. Bosa's great. They're all old. They all need to be replaced. You need great players. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have done an okay job in the draft if the job is to just get good players. Because they've gotten an assortment of good players over time. They don't get a lot of great players. Who's the greatest player they've drafted in the last 5 years? Purdy? Upton Stout? Demo Lenore? Talanoa Hufanga? I mean, who's the greatest player they've drafted in the last 5 years? This is the issue. We can talk about everything else all day, every day, twice on Sunday if you want. That's the issue. It's not about the injury factor. It's not about the substation. It's not about Purdy. Damn, they can't get it done because of Purdy. No, it's not because of Purdy. It's not because of Shanahan. All these anti-Shanahan people. He's like only one of the best fucking coaches in football. You guys are all anti-Shanahan. I mean, seriously. The idiocy of that is just off the charts. We don't hear it that much anymore, but there still is some Shanahan. Freaking Shanahan. This is a franchise that had freaking Jim fucking Tom Sula, Chip goddamn Kelly. You know, you had just the biggest horseshit coaches of all time, and you're going to sit there and bang on Shanahan. Really? Really? That's a neat trick. And that's not the issue. The issue is that they haven't drafted any great players. And that's how you win. Great players. Nicky Manwari is a great player. JSN's a great player. Puka Nacua is a great player. Who's the Niners' young great players? That's the problem. So it's not as much about this position, that position, this need, that need. It should be more about the players. And if you really know the talent and you really handicap the draft well and you know the players, go get great fucking players. And if they play the positions that you need them to play, all the better. But what you really need are great fucking players. Period. And that's really it. And they haven't done that. They've shown no ability to do that. And that's the problem. All right, let's get into what Barrows did a little breakdown, because Barrows, I think, is one of my favorites doing this. He goes into, in his latest article in The Athletic, and I encourage all of you guys to order The Athletic. Heck, I would order the Athletic for Barrows and Brugler alone. They got Dane Brugler, who's one of the best draft guys, and then they got Barrows, who's the best Niner guy. And that right there is worth the price of The Athletic. Barrows and Brugler alone. They ought to do a commercial. Barrows and Brugler alone is reason enough to buy The Athletic. Pay the monthly. All right. Barrows says that the Niners need to find a pass rush specialist. Last year, they found a player in Trent Williams who can play the run. He can collapse the pocket. He's a versatile inside-outside player. But now they need that edge-bending speedster. They really need, they've been looking for him ever since the beginning. They need D Ford. They traded a second-round pick to Brett Veach and the Chiefs for D Ford. D Ford had a bum knee. Chiefs got a second-round pick. Niners got D Ford for one good year, and he gave them one good year. Still jumped off sides in inopportune moments, but he was awesome. Speed rusher opposite Bosa, and they went to the Super Bowl. They haven't had a speed rusher like D Ford since, and that's exactly what they need right now. They need somebody who can be a speed rusher. Now, why specifically a speed rusher? Because you have Nick Bosa on the other end, and you're trying to spread out that line as much as possible. And if you can get a guy who really is great at getting the edge, that makes the tackles kick out further, that creates more space inside, and now you can play your stunting and twisting games, which they love to play. And you can play them all day, and they're more effective because you've got that speed rusher opposite Bosa, and he's stretching that line out and making those splits huge. And now we got room to operate inside. And now what's really intriguing about this, to me, the Niners land the right speed rusher. Watch out for the Niner defensive front, because you're going to have Bosa, granted off a third ACL, so who knows what he'll be, but hopefully he'll bounce back. You'll have this speed rusher of note opposite him. You'll have on pass rushing downs, you'll have Trent Williams inside, who's just too much to handle, and you're going to have Osa Odigizua at 27 rushing the passer inside. Not to mention Collins and West are going to be better rushers in the interior next year than they were this year. But yeah, they can find a couple of guys up front that are the right guys. Stop drafting the wrong guys. Who's going to be picked? Last year it was Robert Saleh who was making the picks. Atlanta had Raheem Morris, and Raheem Morris drafted Billy Bowman, Xavier Watts at safety, Jalen Walker, and James Pierce. And all four of those guys were really good. And if he and it's interesting because Pierce is 240 pounds and Jalen Walker was 240 pounds, 250 pounds, smaller edge rushers. Now Raheem's here. And the word is, not the word is, but the thought is that maybe he's going to like some different body types. And you heard Lynch kind of reference that at the combine. What does that mean? That means smaller, more athletic rushers who can bend the edge and get to the quarterback. That means maybe Cassius Howell. And that's who Barrows is talking about. He says the Niners, if they go round one defensive end, could go Cassius Howell, Texas A&M. He says if his arms were an inch and a half longer, there would be no way he dropped this far to the 27th pick. He's quick, elastic, and productive, and he looks comfortable when asked to drop into coverage. He's also the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. It's the best player. That's the best defensive player in the best defensive conference in America. So yes, I watch Cassius Howell a lot. Is he Myles Garrett? No, he's not Myles Garrett. But he's got an unbelievable bag of tricks. He's got a great first step. And you either can or you can't. Rushing the passer is a skill. And you can look at traits, but traits don't tell the story. You have to look at production. Sack production begets sack production. There's no such thing. You'll never, ever, ever, for the most part, well, I shouldn't say that. Danielle Hunter comes to mind. For the most part, you're not going to find guys who don't sack the quarterback at the collegiate level and then come to the NFL and do. Sacks beget sacks. Sack production begets more sack production. You want to get guys who sack the quarterback, draft guys who sack the quarterback. It's not a guarantee, but I think it's a good start. Cassius Howell knows how to get to the quarterback. That would be a great one. Now, Barrows also, he says that, the comparison is, the Rams' Byron Young, who was a third rounder in 2023, under Raheem Morris when he was the he was the defensive coordinator with the Rams. He drafted Byron Young to the Rams in 2023. And Maddie's suggesting that, hey, you know what? Maybe they could go with their Byron Young again. In this situation, Cassius Howell. Now, he also names Akeem Mesidor, who's an older player, bigger, not as dynamic, but ready to roll. There's Zion Young from Missouri, who's 6'5", 260. What I love about Zion Young is he is a badass. He is a badass. He's tough. He's mean. He's nasty. He's a tone setter. I love Zion Young. I'd probably take Zion Young over Cassius Howell, to be honest. T.J. Parker from Clemson looked really good in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Really long arms. Tremendous long arms. Conditioning, just okay. Don't love him, but he does do a lot off of a kind of a long arm move where he kind of extends one arm and then keeps you at a distance and kind of moves off of it. Something you can do better in the college game to set up college tackles. NFL tackles are rarely set up by just a strong arm rush like that, but Parker does it well. I mean, I'll say that. I mean, he's got a very impressive array of counters off of a strong-armed rush. Just comes out of his stance, boom, and kind of holds you there. And based on what you do, he reacts to you, and he's pretty good at it. But to me, that's not first-round dynamic. I don't see that. A lot of people like R. Mason Thomas. I'll say this about R. Mason Thomas. He is tough. I've got a couple buddies who cover Oklahoma, and they say this is one of the toughest guys coming through that Sooner program in years. Now, he doesn't have long arms. He's a short-armed guy. He doesn't have great length. He doesn't have awesome explosiveness. I kind of feel like R. Mason Thomas is that guy who's going to dominate in college and not dominate in the pros. So of this group, I would take Cassius Howell and Zion Young. Now, these are first-round edge rushers. Now, in round 2, Matt says, hey, don't forget the Michigan kid, Jayshon Barham. And he was an inside linebacker at Michigan. And he started off at Maryland. And then he transferred. And he's a great athlete. And the guy can really play the game. And he's versatile. He's an edge rusher. I don't know if to me, he's a developmental edge rusher. I don't see the combination of moves or size or strength. He's got some quickness and he's tough, but this is a work in progress. To me, this is the kind of guy you take him in round 2 and he's okay, but not great. And you've got kind of a situation where you still need help, and yet you've invested a pick. So I'm not as big a fan of Barham. Maddie says he seems ideal for Raheem Morris coach defense. The Niners don't have a third-round pick. Now, he says others to consider in the second round. And he's got 4 names here. Malachi Lawrence, Central Florida. Derek Moore from Michigan. Romello Height from Texas Tech. And Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State. So these are the second-round defensive ends. Now, I love Malachi Lawrence. I would have no problem if the Niners took Malachi Lawrence 27th overall. He flies off the edge. I mean, if you want to just talk about an impressive speed rusher, Malachi Lawrence. Wow. I mean, it's a great name too, but what an athlete. This guy, whatever he runs, he's field faster than that. I mean, he is really moving off the edge. Now, I don't see a lot of strength. I see more of a speed-based rusher. I don't see tons of counters. I see a guy who's limited in his arsenal of moves, who wins. Guys who have great first step and great speed oftentimes don't have a lot of moves. Why? Because they win with their first step and their speed. They don't need a lot of moves. So you develop moves out of necessity. And if you don't have that necessity, a lot of times the development doesn't happen, especially at the college level. But Malachi Lawrence, I think, is really special. What he has, they can't teach. He comes flying out of his stance. He is burning the edge. He's got good size on him, long arms, explosive get off. And a lot of the counters and the technique can be learned. That's what Chris is for. That's what Kasarik gets paid for, is to teach these guys. So I think Malachi Lawrence in round 2 would be an awesome pick. Romello Height, I just don't know. I mean, he's 235 pounds. He had 13 and a half sacks in a really loaded Texas Tech front, but they were really, really loaded. Skylar Gill-Howard and Lee Hunter and Jacob Rodriguez. I mean, they only had about 7 guys who were going to be drafted off that defense. Were all like the guy. Well, odds are they're not all the guy. And Romello Height at 230 pounds, I think is a little too small to, set the edge on first and second down in the Niners wide 9. He definitely, though, is a smaller, edge rusher. If you want to go to a 5-man front and, you want to put an extra edge rusher on the field, you might go to a smaller guy, and Romello Height may fit that build, and he could be a favorite of Raheem Morris. We'll find out. The Niners definitely are looking at Romello Height. They're showing interest in him. The other name on here, Derek Moore, he just plays incredibly hard. Love Derek Moore. It's hard to know with Michigan. There's so much talent there. It's hard to know which guy is the difference maker, but Derek Moore was very productive there. But of this group, I would say no to Derek Moore and no to Romello Height, and yes to Malachi Lawrence, and yes to Danny Dennis Sutton. Danny Dennis Sutton is an interesting player. Now, Penn State develops some of the most amazing athletes coming off the edge. I mean, going back years and years and years of this, going back to Courtney Brown, going back to LeVar Arrington, going back, we could go back to any number of guys. Adafe Owe, when his name was something else. I forget what it was. Jason something. Penn State has a great strength and conditioning program. They develop the bodies of their athletes probably as well as almost any program in the country. Their guys are strong. They bring these physical freaks to the combine every single freaking year. This year it was Zane Durant running 4.75 at 290 pounds as an interior rusher. Absolutely want Zane Durant on my team. But I also want this kid, Danny Dennis Sutton. Now he operated largely out of a 2-point stance. So, that's a change because Chris is going to say getting a 3-point stance. So, but the length and the size and the explosiveness and the athleticism at a big bodied frame is very, very impressive. Danny Dennis Sutton has got to be all of 6'5" and change, 6'6". And he's long and he's fast. We're talking about an athletic, big guy who can really burn the edge. So, yes, does he need refinement? Absolutely, he does. He's not quite there yet. But, man, he could be exactly what you want. He's going to set the edge on first and second down, but he's also going to burn the edge on third down. I think this guy, in a lot of ways, is a lot like Mikell. He's not as good a run defender as Mikell. He's not as strong as Mikell, but he's got that kind of stature, and he is an outstanding edge rusher, albeit from a 2-point stance. So he needs to be coached up on a 3-point stance, and there's a lot that goes into that. It's not a slam dunk always. So that has to be factored in. But I love Danny Dennis Sutton and Malachi Lawrence. Now, Matty says if you go 4th round for an edge rusher, he says Kieron Crawford from Auburn. There's an awful lot of talk about this Auburn defensive lineman who, Auburn is another factory. The SEC is a factory. They just produce unbelievable talent year after year after year after year. And there's a guy this year who's I would consider him kind of a 5 technique type player, but he's listed as a defensive end, and a lot of people think he's just a jumbo edge rusher. His name's Keldrick Falk, and he's 6'6", and he's 280, and he wore the tiniest little shoulder pads of all time, so he looked kind of funky in his uniform. But you're talking about one of the youngest players in the draft. He's 20. He's super uber athletic at 6'6", 275, 280. Really, really intriguing. But, when I went to go watch him, I kept running into his teammate. To me, the guy that he played opposite is every bit as good. Kieran Crawford might be better. Kieran Crawford's 6'4". He's about 255, 260. He's good. I mean, we're talking about athletic, and strong at the point of attack. Another guy, 2-point stance. He's a kid from Memphis, Tennessee. Started off at Arkansas State, played with the Red Wolves, and then transferred to Auburn. And this year was first team All-SEC. Third team All-SEC voted by the coaches. First team All-SEC voted by PFSN. Started all 12 games this year on the edge, 36 tackles, 9.5 TFLs, 5 sacks on the year, second on the team in TFLs and sacks, fourth in the SEC with 43 pressures, 7 tackles season high in the opener against Baylor in Waco. He's a big-time player, very, very athletic. I mean, really athletic player. As I said, he started at Arkansas State. He played there in 22 and 23, 5.5 sacks in 23. So didn't play high school football until his senior year in high school at Briarcrest Christian. I mean, think about that. Think about you're athletic enough to play in the NFL, and you didn't play high school football until you were a senior in high school. That's Kieran Crawford. So, really good player. He was also a basketball player, great basketball player in high school. And he's an amazing athlete. And that's really what he is. Kieran Crawford. So that's a guy. I mean, that is a guy that 4th round, I love that name. That's the guy that I'd be after as well. I totally agree with Maddie. He says, considering he was a basketball player until his senior year of high school, Crawford is a bit of a developmental prospect. I agree. He took a leap last season at Auburn. He still has room to grow. Excellent. 3 other names he throws out: Trey Moore from Texas, Nadeem Tucker from Western Michigan. 2 more, I should say. And Tucker's interesting, another undersized guy who's an incredible, he has a knack to sack the quarterback. 14.5 sacks for Nadeem Tucker. Now, I don't know if he is strong, he's 245 pounds. There's going to be some transition there, but there you go. A little breakdown of the defensive ends as far as Matt Barrows is concerned. Let me give you a couple more names on here to add to his mix. I like Caden Curry from Ohio State. 6'3", 260. They compared him to Bosa. Really, and especially if you add Joey Bosa, you have Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, and you got Caden Curry from Ohio State. He's listed at pick number 165. So he's going to be a day 3 guy. Really like him a lot. To me, the guy that I absolutely have to draft is Mikhail Kamara from Indiana. He's 6 feet. He's 265 pounds. He's going to be in the 5th round because he is 6 feet tall. I just love this player. I think this is one of the best. This will be one of the best players in the draft that goes on day 3. If this guy were 6'2", he's a 2nd-round pick. Said he's 6 feet, but he's still awesome. The guy had a blocked punt in the national championship game. The guy's awesome. He dominates the motor, the hands. I don't care that he's 6 feet tall. It makes no difference to me. 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", who cares? It makes no difference. The athleticism that it requires to be in the NFL these days is so unique that the height becomes secondary. It becomes who has the athleticism. And Mikhail Kamara absolutely has that athleticism. So he's amazing. Absolutely has to be. That's the guy I would not pass. The 2 Duke guys are really fun to watch. Vincent Anthony and Wesley Williams. Both those guys. I saw Duke here in Berkeley against kick ass on Cal, and they just kept coming, man. They kept coming, and they looked really good up front. Another guy that I really like is Quintavious Hutchins from Boston College. He's another undersized edge rusher. He's 233 pounds, but he's very, very athletic. And I'll give you a couple more that are these are more undrafted guys. But Eric O'Neal from Rutgers, burns the edge, a lot of motor, great sack master. Michael Heldman from Central Michigan, who the Niners did meet with, had some great pre-draft workouts, 6'4", 260, very productive sack guy. These guys are listed as pick number 340, pick number 392. There's only about 260 picks in the draft. So these guys are very much undrafted free agents. Another undrafted free agent that you got to keep your eye on. Two more I'll give you. Nathan Voorhees from Ball State, another edge rusher, 6'3", 250, great knack to get the quarterback. And Malik Silla from Mississippi State, 6'6", 255, just a freaky athlete, needs to be coached up, but I really like him. And as an undrafted player, I love him. So remember those names. Those would be the names. Voorhees has had a lot of production. Niners are looking at him. Heldman, they're looking at him. Eric O'Neill, I like a lot from Rutgers. And then, the guy I got to have on day 3 of this draft, George Gums from Florida, really athletic at the combine, but Mikhail Kamara, Kieran Crawford, those would be the two guys that I would be looking for. Caden Curry on day 3, those 3 probably. If I can go early in the draft, Malachi Lawrence, Zion Young, Danny Dennis Sutton, those are my guys. Gabe Yakis, Cassius Howell. Obviously, if you could get Reuben Bain, but you're not getting Reuben Bain. So there you go. There is the defensive end. Now let's move to wide receiver. And once again, you don't need a wide receiver because you just brought in Mike Evans and Christian Kirk. You have Cowing, who you love. You have Watkins, who I love, coming back. So you technically don't need anybody. But they are talking to KC Concepcion. And in round 1, Matt says, hey, don't forget Denzel Boston. He's a big wide receiver, didn't run a 40. I'm always concerned with the guys who don't run the 40. Trey Lance didn't run the 40. If you don't run the 40, guys who can jump like to jump. Guys who can run like to run. People who are smart like to be tested. People who are going to pass the test with flying colors are like, bring on the test. So the fact that Denzel Boston has not run and wasn't scheduled to run at the Washington Pro Day, I just wouldn't draft him. I'm not drafting a receiver or a corner that I don't know how fast he is. Now, he's a big-bodied, big slot. He could be like Jawan Jennings. I agree. But no, I'm not investing the first pick in the draft on a receiver who plays on the perimeter and have no idea how fast he runs and just be like, well, they clocked him at 22 miles an hour on the G. I don't care. I don't care if they clocked him at 75 miles an hour. That, to me, is totally secondary. They clocked Trey Lance at 22 miles an hour. He was slower than juice. He had no speed at all. So sorry if I don't believe the GPS tracker. I don't. And I'm not going for Denzel Boston. Now, Matt said Omar Cooper out of Indiana, KC Concepcion at A&M. These are really intriguing players. Omar Cooper, I think, is one of the safest picks in the entire draft. He's a for sure receiver who blocks and catches. He ran 4.42. He's strong. He's tough. He's physical. He just doesn't quite have that extra gear that makes you go, whoa. So, like, if I could combine Omar Cooper and KC Concepcion, I would draft that guy in the first round. KC Concepcion also, is not a burner per se, but I mean, he runs in the 4.4s. But he's electric. I mean, he's a dynamic player, where Omar Cooper is a little bit more of a workman-like player. And as I said, I don't think the Niners are going receiver in the first round. Cooper would be a very, very safe pick in the first round. KC Concepcion would be a little bit of a risk. He's an undersized guy. He's had some drops. There's some issues there. KC Concepcion has a lot of talent and is really ready to roll right now, but there's also some, Are the Niners going to invest another first-round pick in a wide receiver 2 and 3 years where the guy's really good but not a number one? I mean, that's what Ricky Pearsall is. He's pretty good, but he's not a number one. And that's kind of what Concepcion is. He's pretty good, but he's not a number one. So I don't know. I would say probably not. Now, in round 2, I think this is the sweet spot for the receiver. And Maddie's got Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. He says Kyle Shanahan might be drawn to Omar Cooper in round 1 because of his versatility and physical resemblance to Deebo Samuel. But Jeremy Bernard could be the second-round version of that, someone Shanahan can line up all over the formation, including in the backfield. Yeah, I see a combo. Jeremy Bernard reminds me of a combo of Deebo and Anquan Bolden. I really love Jeremy Bernard. He was one of my favorite players all year long. I definitely would be looking at him and Chris Bell from Louisville in that second round. I think that's the sweet spot for the Niners as far as the receiver is concerned. Maddie names Elijah Surratt from Indiana, Chris Brazzell, the second from Tennessee, Malachi Fields, who ran in the 4.6s from Notre Dame, Chris Bell, and Skylar Bell. Skylar Bell plays at Connecticut, really good player. Chris Bell is a very good on the in-breaker. He's a good run after the catch receiver. He had 440 yards run after the catch this year all by himself. The Niners, who used to be a run after the catch team, don't have a run after the catch receiver. So I do think Chris Bell would be a perfect complement to Evans and what the Niners have right now. If you said, give me one receiver that you could have that would be a perfect complement to what the Niners do, I'd say Chris Bell. Chris Bell, Louisville, because he's going to run the JJ in-breaker. He can break tackles when he makes those catches. The run after the catch ability is off the charts. Now, there's a round 4 guy that Maddie throws in here that I don't think is going to even make it to round 4. I think he's more of a round 2 guy, and that's Ted Hurst from Georgia State. Now, Ted Hurst is exactly what you're looking for as far as body type. 6'3", and he's Jerry Rice. He's literally Jerry Rice. He's 6'3", he's 205 pounds, he's ripped, he's lean, he's fast, he's tough. He played at Georgia State. He had all kinds of opportunities to leave there for NIL riches this year and decided to show loyalty to Georgia State. So very fluid player, fluid hips, sudden movement. And, you know, I think Ted Hurst is special, like a really, really special football player. So I would have him on that list. It would be Chris Bell. It would be Jeremy Bernard. It would be Ted Hurst. And if I was going to move another guy on that list, because Maddie also says Jacoby Lane and Deshaun Stribling in round 4, I think those might be more like round 2 guys. Not Stribling as much, but Lane. Lane could be on that list as well. He had an amazing combine performance. He looked very comfortable catching the ball. He's 6'4". He's got big time vertical. Man, he was an awesome player at SC. And there's some, when you watch Jacoby Lane, there are moments you sit there and you go, wait a second, this might be the best receiver in the whole draft. He looks that good at times. So I would say the Niners, you know, that second round pick could very well be a receiver. And we just kind of went through those names. All right, let's move to offensive tackle. Maddie says, will this be the draft in which they finally find Trent Williams' heir apparent? John Lynch said they were eyeing tackles last year, but the Raiders took Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant in front of them, and they wind up wanting those guys. Now, to me, there is a good little tell as far as who are the offensive linemen the Niners like. They really believe, I've talked to Chris Furster, he really believes strongly in the mobility. You've got to be able to run off the line. You know, they want speed. They want speed in their offensive linemen. And they equate it to the 10-yard split because offensive linemen don't run 40 yards. So it's really more how fast are you in that first 10 yards. They put a lot of value in the 10-yard split. We did a video on this last year, and I said, you know what? They've really put a lot of value in the 10-yard split, so expect them to go after Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant because those guys had great 10-yard split numbers from the combine last year. Sure enough, the Niners had interest in both. And the Raiders just happened to have the picks in front, took them back to back. And the Niners said, well, so much for that. We'll go in a different direction. So who are the offensive linemen to look at this year? Who are the offensive linemen that did really well in the 10-yard splits? Because that will speak volumes. And I'm going to give you the list. It's an impressive list. The best 10-yard split among offensive linemen was Parker Brailsford, the Alabama center. 170 10-yard split. To put this in perspective, Brock Purdy's 10-yard split was 154. Which is a great fast number for anybody. But it was an amazing number for a quarterback. So 170 Parker Brailsford, undersized center for Alabama. Best 10-yard split. Monroe Freeling. A lot of people love Monroe Freeling. Now they're saying Monroe Freeling might go in the top 10. He had a 171 10-yard split. That's 6'6" and 315 pounds or whatever he is. That's a big one. That's a great number. That almost guarantees he's going in the top half of the first round. Spencer Fano from Utah is going to go high in this draft, 172. Sam Hecht, the K-State center, 173. All right, now we're getting into a couple guys that I really think the Niners would be great fits. Max Ionacher, the Arizona State offensive tackle, who ran 4.91 in the 40, had a 173 10-yard split. That's a great number. Micah Morris, I think, is one of the sleepers to the Niners on day 3, if you can get him. The Georgia guard ran 5.09. He's 330 pounds. He had a 173 10-yard split. He had the 5th best benching numbers. So this guy's got great strength, Micah Morris, and he had a 173 10-yard split, which was a blazing fast time. And he's projected to go probably in the middle of day 3. Micah Morris. That might be a great fit for the Niners. A couple other guys down this list. Caleb Lomu gets mocked to the Niners quite a bit. He's got a 174 10-yard split. Good to know. Here's some other guys that I really like. Jalen Farmer from Kentucky. 4.93 40, 175 10-yard split. Logan Jones, Iowa center. Super athletic. Plays the exact same scheme as the Niners. A lot of people feel like this guy could be the replacement for Jake Brendel. He ran a 4.90 40. He had a 175 10-yard split. He was second in the 3-cone drill, which tests your agility. So Logan Jones is a name to remember. Blake Miller, who Mel Kiper right now has mocked to the Niners in the first round. Blake Miller would be a great first-round pick for the Niners if they want to go offensive tackle. He's a polished right tackle. He's not a left tackle. He's a right tackle. He ran 5.04. He was second in the bench press numbers. And he had a 175 10-yard split. He moves. He's tough. He's good. Chase Basantis, the A&M guard, 5.02 in the 40, 4th in the bench, 176 on the 10-yard split. That's a great number. Jager Burton from Kentucky, the center, 176 on the 10-yard split. Great number. The guy I mentioned before, tackle-wise, J.C. Davis, who went to McClymonds, plays at Illinois. He had a 178 10-yard split. Great number. Brian Parker II, the Duke center, 178 10-yard split, 29 reps of 225, by the way. That's a lot of reps. Emil Wagner from Notre Dame ran 5.01 in the 40. He had a 179 10-yard split. He had 24 reps at 225. Crownover from A&M at a 179 10-yard split. So my point is just this. I'm looking at a list of the top 20 or 30 offensive linemen as far as how they ran that 10-yard split. And there's guys there that this is the list. Like if you think the Niners are going to draft an offensive lineman, I think they probably will. I would bet almost anything that they will take one of these guys that had one of those top 10-yard splits. All right. So as far as Matty's concerned, Matt Barrows, he says in round 1, Max Ionacher from ASU would be a great candidate. He says massive man, 6 feet, 6'6", 320. It's actually probably 330. Moves like someone 100 pounds lighter. He'd be a good apprentice to Williams, although all but 2 of his college snaps have come at right tackle. The remaining 2 are at left guard. The others are Blake Miller from Clemson. So, yeah, I do believe the Niners will be choosing, if they stay at 27, and they're looking offensive tackle, they'll be choosing between those two guys, Max Ianacher and Blake Miller. Miller is a little bit less athletically, but he's got a lot more experience, and he's ready to play right now. He might only be a right tackle, he may not be a left tackle, which is always a concern. But I think he's got that wrestling background. I think Blake Miller is a very safe plug-and-play offensive lineman for the 49ers. Now, Ianacher is a dice roll. He could be the best left tackle in pro football. You may be drafting Trent Williams 2.0. Nobody's 6'6", 330 and looks like this guy. This guy moves his feet like very few people in the world at 6'6", 330. This guy might be a 2050 type athlete who just happened to stopping by here in 2026. But he also barely played any football before Arizona State, and he's super raw, and he's going to do some things, and he needs to be coached up. And there's going to be some film that I'm sure Firster is going to look at and be like, oh my God, this guy's a fucking train wreck. Yes, that's why you're there, Chris, to coach him up. But the size and the strength and the speed and the talent, he could be the best left tackle in football if he fulfills his physical potential. Round 2, Matt says Demetrius Crownover, Texas A&M, converted tight end. Matt says he's a ball of clay in terms of development, 6'7", 310, 35 and 3/8 inch arms. There's a lot of clay to work with. He'd be a quintessential boomer bust gamble in round 2. As I said, I'm an A&M fan. I watched A&M a lot. I just don't think this guy's got the quickness to handle NFL speed and quickness on the defensive line. To me, he's a gigantic right guard. And I know people think, well, he's a tackle. Well, right now he's a tackle, but I think when he goes up against speed in the NFL, he'll be relegated to guard. And I think he's a power-based right guard. Matt says the other guys to look for in round 2 are Drew Shelton out of Penn State, Casey out of Boise State. In round 4, he says look for Jude Bowery out of Boston College, very athletic player. He says Bowery's athletic enough to handle zone blocking. He has the power to knock defenders off the ball in gap blocking scenarios. Figures to be a late day 2 or early day 3 pick. I kind of like Jude Bowery. Others he lists here are Austin Barber from Florida, very athletic, 6'6" tackle. Really like Barber, probably going to go in the 3rd or 4th round. And then J.C. Davis from McClymonds. And as I said, J.C. Davis and Barber. Barber had a 1.77 10-yard split. J.C. Davis had a 1.78 10-yard split. Now, how about guard? Because guard, I think, is the spot where the Niners really need a starter. They gotta have somebody ready to roll because they need someone to step in and play week 1. And I don't, Connor Colby, Brett Toth, they're possibilities. Colby, there's a lot of people that acted like Connor Colby was the worst offensive lineman they've ever seen last year, which is just a joke. He actually stepped in and played pretty well. They won some games with him at guard. So you get Colby in year 2. You get Brett Toth coming over in free agency. Niners haven't used a first-round pick on a guard since Joshua Garnett. Niners just don't use, day 1 picks or day 2 picks for the most part on offensive linemen. Aaron Banks was in 2018, I believe, the last time they took a offensive lineman on the second day. They have just not invested in offensive line. The last first-round pick was Joshua Garnett in 2016. He was a bust. So it's funny. Matt says no guards are first-round players, and I would say I disagree. The Penn State kid is absolutely, if he's there, I'm taking him. I don't care if he doesn't fit the system. Change the freaking system. This guy's Canton, 6'4", 320. Baldy said he's his favorite player in the draft. Baldy played offensive line. Baldy was talking about how Gray Zabel and the Cowboy guy from Bama, how he liked those guys last year in the draft and how Awane is better than both of them. Awane is the only player in this draft I would trade up to get. I saw Wisniewski coming out of Penn State, and I thought at the time Wisniewski's going to be a great NFL player. And I feel exactly the same way about Venga. the man they call Venga Owane from Penn State. You get big Venga, put him next to Trent Williams, and suddenly you'll be able to run the ball. You may not even need more running backs. You might be able to run with what you got. So I would say Owane, for sure, I would take in the first round. Now, in round 2, I think round 2, it's going to be really hard to not take a guard. Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon, number 75, an amazing talent. Chase Besantis from A&M, tremendous player. Jennings Dunker played right tackle at Iowa. Could slide in and play left guard to start his career. He would be a great pick. Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech, former wrestler, tough as hell, nasty, wants to bury people. He would probably be my pick in round 2 if I was just going to fill that spot. But once again, the value, I think, is down the board. Micah Morris, they have at pick number 162, 6'5", 334 pounds. I love him. Armaj Reed Adams from Texas A&M, 6'6", 315. He is another road grader run blocker. He is a tremendous, dominant run blocker. They have him at pick 171. Jeremiah Wright from Auburn, 6'5", 330. Just one of the widest body guards you're going to see. I love Jeremiah Wright. They have him as the 12th best guard. He's at pick 190. Bo Stevens from Iowa, really athletic player who can play a number of spots, plays the exact same system as the Niners. They have him going pick 234. That's late on day 3. But the guy that there's 2 guys that I really, really love. One, I mean, I do love Kobe Baines from Kansas, but my favorite interior player and the guy that I would draft, and he's probably you might be able to roll the dice and get him with those 4. The Niners have 4 fourth-round picks. You may be able to get this guy with one of those 4th-round picks. It would be a little bit of a dice roll to try to get him with one of those 4th-round picks, but it could be done. I think there's a possibility that he could be there, and that's the Oklahoma guard, Fabechi Uwewu. And if I'm butchering that last name, I apologize to the Uwewu family. But this guy is my favorite. This is my favorite offensive guard in this draft. This is the guy that I would definitely go after. My camera's off again. Here we go. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I was on another page. I didn't realize the camera had gone off. We're having a little technical issue with the camera. But we're back. But I really love this kid Uwewu from Oklahoma. Just a Fabechi Uwewu. He started at North Texas. He's from Texas. He's from Coppell, Texas. 6'4", 325 pounds. Went to Coppell High School, played for Mike DeWitt, and blocked for an offense that averaged 374 yards a game and 163 rushing yards per game. Also competed in track and field, threw the shot put and the discus. Graduated from Oklahoma with a degree already in multidisciplinary studies, is pursuing a master's degree as well. Fabechi Iwewu. No. Fabechi Wiwu. Okay, there we go. That's the correct pronunciation. Fabechi Wiwu. I've been calling him Nwaiwu. Wiwu. Fabechi Wiwu is really a tremendous player. So he played at North Texas, right? He started at North Texas, played 2 years at North Texas, transferred to Oklahoma. At North Texas, he played right guard and he played right tackle. He played guard at Oklahoma and then in a pinch was forced to play center at the East-West Shrine game. He did not allow a sack all year. He allowed 2 pressures all year. This guy is really, really good in pass protection. He won the Don Key Award, which is a huge deal at the University of Oklahoma. He also then at the East-West Shrine game won the Pat Tillman Award. This kid is awesome. He's day 3 for sure. But, I mean, Oklahoma gave up only 29 sacks on the year. This guy's a hustler. He's a grinder. He can play left guard. He can play center. He can play right guard. What I love about him is he's a high character kid. And this guy worked himself from a walk-on player at North Dakota State or North Texas State to an all-conference player. He was second team all-SEC this year. This guy was a finalist for the Bullsworth Trophy. He, as I said, he won the Oklahoma Don Key Award, which is the program's highest annual honor. This is my guy, Fabechi Wiwu. The arm length, 34.5-inch arms. When you watch this guy in the run game, guys fall off of him, and he blows them up. I think this guy, I would draft this guy. I would start him right away at left guard, and next year I would make him my center. He's my left guard this year, and he's my center next year, and he's replacing Brendel. But when you go from walk-on at North Texas to all conference at Oklahoma, I mean, come on, man. You're all SEC second team, and you were a walk-on at North Texas State. Love this kid, man. Love this kid. Fabechi Wiwu. Fabechi Wiwu. Anyway, love him. And that would be the guy for me, Fabechi Wiwu. He's probably going to be round 4, but he might go in round 3. So if you want to guarantee that you get him, you may have to make a move and get him early. All right, let's look at the last position. Matt looked at defensive tackle. Niners like to have 4 defensive tackles in uniform on game days. Okay, right now they've got Osa Odigizua, Alfred Collins, CJ West, those 3, and then it would just be a battle royale to see who that 4th guy is. Is it going to be Sebastian Valdez? Is it going to be Evan Anderson? We'll see. It's going to be a wide open competition, you would think, for that last defensive tackle spot. Collins, West, Odigizua, Evan Anderson, Sebastian Valdez. And then at defensive end, obviously you have Bosa and Williams, Keon White, Sam O, William Bradley King right now. So where is defensive tackle on the need? And, I think more than anything, if you could find one more, this is a tough position. There's injuries here. If you could find either somebody who's a real dominant occupier of, strong man who can occupy some guys, or a one gap penetrator who's like a Zane Durant who can get on his horse and sack the quarterback. I definitely could see defensive tackle being a spot where they want to find somebody. Now, do they need anybody? No, not really. I mean, you could really go with what you got. I really love Peter Woods and Zane Durant, Rayshawn Benny quite a bit, Chris McClellan. Those are the James Thompson from Illinois, Brandon Cleveland from NC State. There's some decent day 3 guys here who can play, and I just named a couple of them right there. James Thompson from Illinois had a tremendous postseason. So those are some of those guys. And there's the 5 technique guys. There's a guy named Caleb Proctor from Southeast Louisiana who is probably going to be a day 3 pick. Really intriguing pass rusher at 6'2", 290. Skylar Gill Howard from Texas Tech, really intriguing pass rusher. Landon Robinson, who's 6 feet, 290 from Navy, projected probably to go on day 3, late on day 3. Really intriguing interior rusher. Love Landon Robinson and Zane Durant, Caleb Proctor. Those are the 3 guys that I really love the most. Now, there are some of the big boys inside. Caleb Banks, Lee Hunter, Caden McDonald, Kristen Miller. Those 4 guys, I would have to consider all 4 of those guys, even in the first round. Kristen Miller is a buddy of Mikael Williams. He's 6'4", 320. He's tough. Lee Hunter, I think, would be a very good pick the Caden McDonald is one of the best run defenders you're going to find. He's just an absolute menace. If you get Caden McDonald, teams will not be able to run on you. The Niners also met with Xavion Harris from Ole Miss, who had a domestic violence issue that crept up. This guy is 6'8", 330, and fast. He is something else, man. There's also a couple other guys I really like on day 3. Devin Eastern from Minnesota, monster. Gary Smith, the third from UCLA, is just one of the widest-bodied guys you're going to find, but he moves really well. Cole Brevard from Texas is 6'2", 350, but really does move well. As you know, for 350 pounds, he moves very well. So round 1, Matt says there's no defensive tackle, especially since the Niners traded for Odigizua. So the need at other spots is probably more severe. Now in round 2, he names Christian Miller from Georgia. He says he'd beef up the Niners' run defense and complement Odigizua's pass rush skills. With Miller, the Niners would have strong rotation among him, Odigizua, Collins, and West. Yeah, I think Miller is really intriguing. Others are Darrell Jackson Jr. from Florida State, who's very, very athletic, and Chris McClellan from Missouri, who's also a great mover. Round 4, he's got Grayson Halton from Oklahoma, who had a great combine. He said he's sort of a quick-footed interior defender the 49ers and Raheem Morris coach teams have looked for. He lacks length, 31 and an eighth inch arms. He might drop him to day 3, but he's 4'8", 240 is hard to ignore. Other defensive tackles that could go in the 4th round, according to him, Caleb Proctor and Zane Durant. I watched the D-tackle workouts in Indy pretty intently. Zane Durant and Caleb Proctor far and away were the best moving interior players. I mean, both those guys just moved great. If I could have both those guys, I think they're the kind of versatile pass rushers that you could almost put anywhere, and they can do the job. So just I think Matt did a really good job in this article. All right, so let me show you some of my sample mocks, and then we'll hit some supers and bolt for the door. I did 5 mocks. And I decided I would do 5 themed mocks just to see what they would look like. And before we get to my 5 theme mocks, let's thank our sponsors one more time. Thank you to Pig and a Pickle, title sponsor of the Crude Show. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're opening this year in Petaluma. So they'll have 3 locations. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Great barbecue. Amazing restaurant. You'll love Pig and a Pickle. If you try it once, you'll be a fan for life. Also, thanks to Novato Chevrolet. Family owned for over 50 years, friendly staff. They meet all your expectations. No need to hassle or negotiate. You're always going to get their best price up front. You can trust Novato Chevrolet. They get the best selection of American-made cars at the right price with no hidden fees. That's right. So big fan of Novato Chevrolet. Go see David Corral at Novato Chevrolet. He will treat you expertly. You will love the service that you get from David. Also, thanks to Habbas Law. Habbas Law will be covering pet adoption fees at San Jose Animal Care Center on Saturday, March the 28th. So that's right. Habbas Law is covering the adoption fees. They're paying. Every dog, every cat, every bunny, everything. You just show up with a great attitude. They're going to pay for the adoption fee, and you're going to walk out of there with a new family member. So I love Habbas Law. Omar Habbas, Tarek Habbas, they do an amazing job. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's on Monterey Road there. Habbas Law, rough on injustice with a heart for paws. And thanks to Habbas Law for sponsoring the Crude Show. We should give you that address. Let me see. I have it here in my notes. The address for this is a week from today, is 2750 Monterey Road in San Jose. Habbas Law from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They'll be paying the adoption fees. And you can go adopt an animal, and they'll pay for the adoption fees. And, Habbas Law doing some great things. Thank you, Habbas Law, for doing that. Very, very cool. Also, thanks to Alomar Marina. Check them out on the web, alomarmarina.net. They're at 5999 Garden Highway. Float while you dine. That's right. Great spot for breakfast and lunch. right there in Sacramento, 5999 Garden Highway. Tell them Krug sent you. Check out the website, alamarmarina.net. You'll be glad that you did. The shrimp tacos are amazing. I had a fantastic burger the last time I was there. My nephew went there with his girlfriend a couple weeks back, said it was outstanding. Really cool spot, 5999 Garden Highway. And then also thanks to our good friends at Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue. The great Anthony Catania in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. He's at 831-521-5264. You can connect with him on Instagram. He's at Sharp Corners 831 on the gram. They're going to have a trade night on March 24th and March 26th. So this week coming up, where you're going to be all kids under 12 get one free pack of cards. Very, very cool. And also remember, anything that you buy from Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles, if you say that you are a fan of the Krug Show, mention my name, you get free shipping. That's right. He's going to ship it to anywhere in the continental U.S. just because you know me. And so free shipping to all the people there at Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. All right. Let's take a look at our mocks. Now we've got themed mocks. The first mock I'm going to show you is, let me see, which one is this? This is only offense. Okay. This would be the Niners, a Niner mock if they only went offensive players. Okay. So we'll share the screen. You guys can take a look. If they only went offensive players, I think this is it. Let's see. Yeah, they only went offensive players. So I have them taking Caden Proctor out of Alabama in the first round, Mike Washington, the running back from Arkansas, in round 2, who would be a great running back, a slasher, a tremendous running back. Malachi Fields, Deion Burks, a couple receivers, Fields from Notre Dame, Burks from Oklahoma. Joe Royer, a tight end from Cincinnati, at pick 138. J.C. Davis, pick number 139, offensive tackle from Illinois. And since I was going only offense, I went Jam Miller, best blocking running back in the draft, from Alabama. And then pick 167, I went Micah Morris, who I think is going to be a steal. I do think Micah Morris could be that day 3. You know, if you can't get Owiwu, for whatever reason he's not there, you can't get him. If you can't get Fabechi, and Fabechi is gone, and there will be no Fabechi Owiwu, then maybe you can come back, later in the draft and go with somebody like Micah Morris. And I think Micah Morris would be a good call. So that's our mock draft number 1. All right, we'll stop sharing that. Mock draft number 2 is, what if the Niners just said, we're only going to draft defense? Which that is not the craziest idea either, only defense. Here's the only defense mock. I start with C.J. Allen. Now, here's the other thing. John Lynch went to the Georgia Pro Day the other day, and over the Stanford Pro Day. And people were like, well, what's he doing here? Who's he here to see? And I was thinking maybe it's Kristen Miller. Maybe it's Monroe Freeling. But the more I start to think about it, the more I think it could be this guy. C.J. Allen, the linebacker from Georgia, is really, really smart by all accounts. And he's an incredible athlete. Looked a little stiff at the testing on his pro day. But great athlete, 3-year starter, super smart, super athletic, SEC player. A lot of people feel like this guy's a blue chipper who's going to play a lot of years in the NFL and be great. And so C.J. Allen, I went with my all defensive draft, and I started with C.J. Allen. Now they don't have a severe need at linebacker, but you know what the Niners really need at linebacker? They need a great effing player. And C.J. Allen's a great player. That's what Aziz was. That's what Greenlaw was. That's what Warner is. A great player. D. Winters, he's all right. Nick Martin, super athletic. Some of these other guys, all right, special teamers. They don't have a great young linebacker. If they went with C.J. Allen, they would eradicate that, and they would now have a great young linebacker. So in my all-defense mock, I have C.J. Allen going in the first round. I have Keontae Scott from Miami in round 2. He's just too much of a playmaker. I don't know if he's a nickel or a safety, if he's going to be a slot corner, if he's going to play the boundary. There's a little bit of unknown there. But, man, this guy is a player, big-time player, makes huge plays. Love Keontae Scott. Can play for me any day. Zane Durant. You've heard me say Zane Durant a bunch. This might be one of my favorite players in the entire draft. 6'1", 290, runs 4.75. I don't care if you have Odiggy Zua or not. I'm drafting that guy. You got to be kidding me. Zane Durant would look phenomenal on the Niner defensive line. Kieron Crawford, we talked about him earlier, the edge rusher from Auburn. Devin Eastern, big defensive tackle from Minnesota. Mel Kiper's a big fan of his. And I went down a rabbit hole on Devin Eastern one day. There's a ton to like, man. He is really a nice defensive tackle. I think he could be a big war daddy inside. Dalen Everett, the corner from Georgia, good size. And then I finished up with Mikhail Kamara. Kamara at pick 179 is just thievery. That is thievery. So there you go. That is my all defense mock. So if we were going all defense, that would be my mock. All right, let's go to my. I'm a Texas A&M fan, so let's go to my all A&M mock, which is, come on, what are the odds the Niners would take everybody from Texas A&M? But here it is. Round 1, Cassius Howell. Come back in round 2 for Demetrius Crownover. Torian York, the undersized linebacker, but a damn good one. Trey Zoom III, who they list as a center. He played tackle for the Aggies, and he's a really good pass protector, but he's got short arms, so they're going to move him inside. But they're thinking that Trey Zoom III could be a very, very good center. Nate Bokircher might be the best blocking tight end in the draft. Another A&M kid. He needs development as a receiver, but he is a blocker. Oh my God, this guy will block you. Tyler Onyedim is a defensive tackle with some pass rush ability. Albert Regis is a defensive tackle with, I kind of look at him as almost kind of like a Moro Ajomo type. Is he a defensive tackle? Is he a defensive end? You know what he is? He's just a freaky athlete. And he's to me, he's going to be a day 3 steal for somebody. Le'Veon Moss, rangy running back who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And then pick 211, Armaj Reed Adams, road grading right guard. This is if you went all A&M. You decide you're going to go 9 picks, all from Texas A&M. There you go. That's what it would look like. People probably not liking that one. This one, these last 2, I think, are the most interesting. This one is going to be all skill position players, okay? If you couldn't draft anything but guys who touch the football, guys who literally, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks, that's it. No offensive linemen, no defensive linemen, no defenders at all. All skill possession player mock. Old Scout used to tell me, hey, if you want to change your team, the fastest way to do it is change the guys who touch the ball. That will change your team the fastest, faster than changing out the linemen. So here it is. I've got Chris Bell, who Tony Pauline says the Niners have a lot of interest in, maybe even in round 1. I think if Chris Bell's on the board for the Niners in round 2, they're going to take him. But in this scenario, he comes to the Niners in round 1. Mike Washington, the running back from Arkansas, once again in round 2. I'm a gigantic fan of Kalon Black, the running back from Indiana. Now, he's probably going to go day 3, but I just love this kid. He moves the pile. He's tough. Second effort, third effort, fourth effort, fifth effort. Great feet, great explosion. Really, really try-hard player, tough, strong, weight room strength. Really like Kalon Black. I think he's going to be a very solid NFL back. So this would be very unpopular. Could you imagine if the Niners came out in the draft and went wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, and then quarterback? But that's how this draft's going. It's a skill position only draft. Deion Burks from Oklahoma, great workout numbers. I think he's kind of special. Garrett Nussmeier. If I got to go with a quarterback, I like Nussmeier. Son of a coach, didn't have a very good year at LSU, looked a whole lot better at the Senior Bowl. At the beginning of the year, Garrett Nussmeier was thought to be a top 10 NFL pick. A lot of people thought he was going to be in the first round, top half of the first round guy. Now he's, maybe a late day 2 guy. And so there you go, Garrett Nussmeier. I've got Joe Royer, the tight end from Cincinnati. Really like Royer, all-around player. I've got Nate Bokercher. I'm going 2 tight ends there with Bokercher, the blocker from A&M. These last 3 guys, I love all 3 of these guys. Keyshawn Owens is a running back from Florida International. And great speed, great balance, has a little bit of Kamara. Reminds me a little bit of Alvin Kamara. Can catch the ball out of the backfield, really strong legs, good cutting ability. Really like Keyshawn Owens. Dylan Bell, the wide receiver from Georgia, don't think he's going to get drafted, but I think he'd be a perfect Niner. I think Dylan Bell would be a perfect complement to what the Niners have. He's in a lot of ways a poor man's Deebo Samuel. And then Jamari Taylor, 13 touchdowns rushing this year for Jamari Taylor for the Virginia Cavaliers in the ACC. And to me, that's just too much production, and he's just too good of a player to not take at pick 257 overall. So there is my mock. If we did nothing, the Niners did nothing but skill position players. All right, and the last one, and this is actually kind of a popular one. I actually think this might be the best of the mocks. This would be, what if the Niners just said, we are going line of scrimmage and only line of scrimmage. O-line, D-line all day, no matter what. This potentially is what it could look like. Round 1, you go Caden McDonald. You're totally shutting down your opponent's run game. Nobody can run inside if you have Caden McDonald. He's one of the most dominating run defenders I've seen in years. Jennings Dunker. Now you've got your starting left guard. Landon Robinson from Navy. You've got an interior situational rusher, kind of a nickel rusher. J.C. Davis, you've got your future offensive tackle. Kieran Crawford, you got an edge rusher who can really bend the edge and speed rush to the quarterback. Bo Stevens, you got an Iowa offensive lineman who can play either guard spot or center and probably plug in right away. At 206, I went with Emil Wagner from Notre Dame, who another really athletic, great prospect, needs development. 2 years from now, he might be one of the better tackles in this draft. And then pick 248, I went Caleb Proctor from Southeast Louisiana. Caleb Proctor is one of the best players in the draft that nobody's talking about. People talk about Caden Proctor from Alabama, but nobody's going to talk about Caleb Proctor. But he is a very, very intriguing rusher who can do it inside, outside, scheme versatile. I think he can play a lot of different spots. Really like Caleb Proctor, Southeast Louisiana. All right, let's hit some supers. We got 4 here, and we'll bolt for the door. Thanks to all you guys. Leak Scorpion, Larry, your face is gone from the screen. And this is a good thing, Larry. Oh, no. Sorry about that. So I apologize. Now I feel almost like I should give that money back because you're really just giving me information. You weren't really asking a question or anything. I almost feel like I owe you the $2. Gravy 707 says, Larry, if you didn't know, your camera isn't on. Maybe this is a cheap way to get people to donate. Just leave the camera off. I apologize. I really do. I was on a different screen. I was away from my face. I don't. When I'm doing these things, when I go to this part of the show where I'm looking at the supers, I go to the chat. Sometimes I'll go to the chat early on, but sometimes when I'm looking at notes on some of these draft players or notes that I've made or mock drafts or just other screens pulled up, I'm on different pages, and then I didn't notice that my camera had turned off on me. Damn it. Space Cowboy, turn on the camera. These are awesome comments. And Brad Lodge Brad Lodge, 1852. Larry, do you think if the Niners were in on Bosa, they would have signed him by now? Oh, I definitely think they're in on Bosa. There's no rush on this. I think they want to find out how the draft. I mean, the Niners have a bunch of needs, and defensive end's one of them. But I'm sure there are defensive ends they really like and defensive ends they don't really like. So maybe if there's like a certain defensive end that they absolutely love and he falls to them in the first round and they take him, maybe that would preclude them from signing Joey Bosa. But there also could be that player goes one pick in front of them and they, instead of going defensive edge rusher, they go offensive line or whatever, safety, corner, whatever, and don't go with that, and then come back with Joey Bosa in a signing. I do think Joey Bosa would be a good fit right now because he can play the run well on first and second down. When I say well, he's not a great run defender per se, but he knows how to put his head in there. And then on third down, he can still burn the edge. So I mean, at this point, here we are. It's almost late. It's almost April. The draft's almost here, and you're looking for a defensive end. I don't know that you're going to find a better option than Joey Bosa. And I kind of like the idea. I think Joey would have a good impact on Nick. I think they would challenge each other. I like the year that Joey had in Buffalo. I mean, if Joey had 5 or 6 forced fumbles for the Niners like he had with the Bills, I mean, that right there would be worth it. That's a lot of forced fumbles, man. That's a lot of forced fumbles. So yes, I do think I think they're if he had a developed market, maybe it would go faster. But I think he's pausing to see what teams don't get the players they want in the draft, and he wants a payday. So I mean, I think Joey Bosa to the Niners is highly likely to happen. That would be my guess. I think he's coming. I think he's coming this year. I really do. Stephon Niners. Larry, do you think? Oh, okay, we got that one. Oh, wait, no, we didn't get this one. Stephon, come back with this one. He goes, how would you rank Ionacher, Proctor, and Miller at 27? Well, it's a great question. Proctor is the biggest, most dominant athlete. He's the biggest, fastest guy. But I'm also not 100% convinced that he's a left tackle. He may only be a right tackle, and he may only be a guard. He's such a big guy that I think he might be more of a guard than a tackle. I have that concern a little bit with Jennings Dunker as well. Even though they list him as a tackle, I think his long-range position is guard. See, that's the thing. When you look at especially this position, there might be 70 guard tackles in the draft. But the Niners and Chris Foerster may watch the film and decide that there's only 5 of the 70 that can pass protect at the NFL level. So that really, so a lot of these guys that are listed as tackles, the Niners on their board, if we walked into their boardroom, would have them listed as guards. Just because it's, that it's every team looks at it differently. If you like zone blocking, you want guys who can sprint off the football, sometimes undersized guys, more athleticism. If you want guys who can, more gap power, then, maybe Guy Proctor would fit that better. But I would probably say if it's on, like, the Niners need a guard to play right now. Can any of these guys step in there? I don't know. I would say Proctor is the guy that probably steps in at guard. Ionacher and Miller are probably more tackles. Now, Ionacher has unbelievable body type and movement ability at that body type. So he could be a bust, or he could be the greatest tackle that ever played. I mean, he's really, really, really athletic. 6'6", 330, and he looks lean. That's hard to pass. But if I was saying, there's risk involved there. There's bust potential with Ionacher. that he may just be this guy that looks like Tarzan but plays like Jane. And the consistency, we don't know if it's going to be there. I would say Miller is a little bit more like a McGlinchey. It's a little bit more low end. He's a little bit more of a sure thing. But he also may just be a right tackle. And then in the first round, do you want to take him? You took Mike McGlinchey in the first round. Do you want to take another right tackle in the first round? Who was the last 49er offensive lineman that actually signed a second contract? Banks was a second-round pick. He didn't get a second contract. McGlinchey was a first-round pick. He didn't get a second contract. Joshua Garnett, of course, didn't get a second contract. So Niners haven't given a second contract to an offensive lineman. I would say I would rank these guys Miller 1, Ionacher 2, Proctor 3. Why? Because Miller is for sure going to be a solid NFL right tackle. And I think probably could play left guard to start. Not for sure, but I think he probably is the safest to be a very good NFL tackle, Blake Miller. Love the best wrestling background. Love the all the collegiate experience. Love how he grades out. Ionacher is the gamble on greatness. That's the Al Davis pick. Al Davis would draft Ionacher. The late Al Davis. You know, we used to say to my buddy Bill Urbanek, you want to hit singles, I want to hit home runs. This is the all or nothing. This is the boom or bust. This is the swing for the fences. If you want to get the best tackle in football, you draft Ionacher, and maybe he becomes the best tackle in football. And then Proctor, I just think, Alabama every year produces a lot of big, strong guys, and they all play, but how many of them are really awesome? Is Chance Warmack awesome? Is DJ Fluker awesome? Are any of these guys really awesome? I liked the guy last year who went to Dallas in the first round. I really liked him, but I think Proctor is a guard. I think Proctor's a guard or a right tackle, and I think he's going to be solid, but nothing great. I think Ionacher is going to either be a bust or a star, and there's risk. And I think Miller is very, very, very low risk, and one of the safer picks in the draft. So I'd go Miller, then a big swing on Ionacher on potential, and then Proctor. I like my guy from Oklahoma even more. I really do. Mendez, I kind of agreed with Richard Sherman. We should draft a safety in the first round. We need to find Jimmy Ward 2.0 and find another Tayshaun Gibson. To that note, there was a note today from the Niners are bringing in Skylar Bell. Yeah, Oregon State safety Skylar Bell has been invited to the Niners local pro day. And he looks pretty intriguing. 6'1", 210, 36-inch vert, 10'1" broad, 4.59 on the 40, 6.79 on the 3 count. Fourth most special team snaps in this draft class. They need to find themselves a safety of some kind in this draft. And Caleb Downs is amazing. He's going early. Dylan Thieneman is the guy that ran the great 40 time 4.36, and there's a lot of people that think that he may be there for the Niners. When I watch his film, I don't see a player that plays with his testing numbers. So I like Emmanuel McNeil Warren quite a bit from Toledo, and that's the guy that I would try to get. Yeah, if I was going to go safety early, I'd go with him. I really like, if I'm going safety in round 2, I like Bud Clark. I thought he had an incredible Senior Bowl. And I like A.J. Halsey from LSU, who's a thumper. He's a big-time hitter. I really like Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. He's young. He's raw. He's a crazy athlete. Very, very talented. Very talented athlete. V.J. Payne from K-State. I really like him quite a bit. But my sleeper safety that I would I've got two guys that I'm looking for on day 3, maybe now 3 if you want to throw Skylar Thomas in there. But Jalen Catalon, who played at UNLV, transferred to Missouri. He's a 5'10", 205-pound safety. Really like him. But my favorite safety in the draft, and the guy that I would try to get is where is he? I don't see him here on the list. Miles Rouser. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Miles Rouser from ASU. And I really like him. This guy loves to hit, loves to crush people. He's going to be a day 3 guy. He's got, just decent size measurables. Nothing jumps out at you. But this guy loves to hit. And that's what I want in a safety. So Miles Rouser on day 3. Jalen Kilgore, especially after watching what Eman Wari was able to do last year in Seattle, if there's one guy that I'd want to take a real long look at, it's Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. South Carolina's produced some freaking nutty athletes, and this guy's a really good football player, and I think going to be a nice pick. Michael says San Diego State cornerback Chris Johnson looks elite. Yeah, Chris Johnson is elite. In fact, there are very few corners that I would draft with the 49ers pick at 27, but Chris Johnson is one of those corners. If Chris Johnson is there when the Niners pick at 27, he'll be on my list for sure. He ran 4.4 flat. He's a really, really good corner. He had 17 reps at 225, great strength. And then he had 38 inches on the vert, which means he's got lower body explosion. So, there's only so many boxes to check off. Production, check. Athleticism, check. Strength, check. Jumping ability, check. 40 time, check. Once to me, if you're really wanting to have a great draft, wed awesome production with awesome athleticism. If you can find the awesome producing college players who are also the awesome pro athletes, and then you make that subsection is what you want to be drafting from. That's how you get Aldon Smith. That's how you get Jerry Rice. That's how you get the creme de la creme. The best testing athletes, the best actual players. D'Angelo Pons, I think, is one of the sleepers in this draft. Why? He tests amazing. He plays even better. Star. I don't care if he's 5'8". Who's a better player? Darrell Luter Jr. or Upton Stout? Who's the better player? Upton Stout. But Upton Stout's 5'8" and change. And Darrell Luter's like the prototype. He's like 6'2", 6'3". Long arms. Press man is all he played at South Alabama. Yeah, but guess what? It's about can you play? It's not a track meet. It's about can you play? And D'Angelo Pons can absolutely play. To me, if you're saying what's one plan of attack, you're talking about Chris Johnson. I think starting with Chris Johnson would be a safe play. I'll tell you what would be a really safe play. Trade back from 27 to 5 or 6 spots, 32, 33. Maybe somebody wants to move up for Simpson, the quarterback, maybe the Jets, maybe the Cardinals, somebody like that wants to jump and get, have that extra year on the first round pick. If you're a first round pick, you get the 5th year option potential. Second round picks are 4-year commitments. So if you like a quarterback, you may want to try to trade up, try to get that 5th year. The Niners are sitting there at 27. I'd gladly move back to 32, 33, 34 to let somebody come up and take Ty Simpson and then take D'Angelo Pons or Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson would be a great pick, but I think D'Angelo Pons, Chris Johnson's a bigger corner. He's 6 feet. D'Angelo Pons, though, is a great corner and has great workout numbers. He's a lock to be very, very good. The Niners have effed up the number 1 pick so frequently. How about just targeting a really good player like Johnson or Pons and trade back a couple spots and nab them and get a couple extra picks and start your draft with a sure thing. No more Ricky Pearsalls, no more Drake Jacksons, no more Javon Kinlaws, no more of these guys that if they're healthy and this and that, or if they're this or all these ifs. Screw all your ifs. Go get guys who play and play well and test well. Go get studs. When was the last time they got a real monster? They need a great player. You get great players when you can wed awesome college production with awesome athleticism. That is where great players reside. Jay Stoudemire, would you take C.J. Allen over McNeil Warren at 27? I would. C.J. Allen, I think, is a Pro Bowl linebacker. McNeil Warren, I think, is a really intriguing safety. I like him, but I think C.J. Allen is in that class with Greenlaw and Fred and Aziz, Bowman and Willis. He's a blue chipper. He's an awesome run and hit linebacker, 3-year starter on one of the best defenses in college football. Plus, he's supposedly a great kid, really great leader. The Niners need a great linebacker. Niners used to have the best linebackers. They don't any longer. They need a great young linebacker, and he definitely fits the bill. All right. That's going to do it for us. We're 2 hours and 5 minutes in. Thanks to everybody who participated. Thanks to all of our sponsors. The links are in the description for all of our sponsors. Thanks to each and every one of them for sponsoring the Krug Show. We always usually put up our Habbas Law thing when we do our picks. There we go. Habbas Law, 1-800-INJURED, not picks. When we do our supers, they will fight to make it right. HabbasLaw.com on the web. Thanks to Habbas Law. And, of course, thanks to all of our sponsors, and thanks to all of you guys. Have a great rest of your Saturday. I think I'm going to barbecue, watch some NCAA hoops, maybe throw the lacrosse ball around with my kid. Not really sure if we'll have enough time. No, I'm just joking, but we have a big Saturday going. Hopefully we'll have some fun. I'm back with you. Let's see. When am I on next? Well, if anything breaks at all, you'll hear us jump to it and come up with new content, new material. But as far as streaming, we're probably done streaming for the day. But I know what we're going to do. We're trying to stream tomorrow with Justin Mello, who is another guy who's big on the draft, and he covers the Titans, and he does a lot of interesting stuff. I got to send him a text today and confirm with him, but I think we're going to try to do something tomorrow with Justin Mello and look ahead to the draft. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never streamed with him before, but I really like some of the stuff that he puts out there. So anyway, thanks to all of you guys, and until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.